Welcome to the News Hour. A grim anniversary was marked today in Kyiv and across Europe, 3 years after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Today's commemorations come as the U.S., under President Donald Trump, has decisively changed its stance on the war. It sparked deep concern across Europe and beyond as the president has sought to deflect blame from Russia for its invasion and criticize the Ukrainians and the European allies. On the ground in Kyiv today, more than a dozen Western leaders marked the third anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion. Notably not present was a representative from the U.S. It was a symbol of a dramatic shift in U.S. policy since President Trump took office again. Mr. Trump has promised to end the war, but has so far largely left Ukraine out of the negotiations. That's after last week calling Ukraine's president a dictator, while leaving the fate of continued U.S. funding for Kyiv in question, and refusing to blame Russia for the war. Today, President Trump was in Washington with one of America's closest European allies, French President Emmanuel Macron. The two met virtually with leaders of the world's 7 largest economies to discuss the war. Some of those leaders were in the room with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who appealed directly to Mr. Trump.
It's essential that we work together so that when we negotiate with Russia, the strongest defenders of freedom are at the table: America, Europe, and the Ukraine.
I think we could end it within weeks.
Later in the Oval Office, President Trump said the U.S. is close to reaching a deal that would give the U.S. access to Ukraine's critical minerals and other resources as part of wider negotiations aimed at ending the war. Zelensky has said the deal would have to come with concrete security guarantees. President Trump did not confirm if that was part of the agreement. Mr. Trump also said that Russian President Vladimir Putin would accept European peacekeepers in Ukraine to back a potential ceasefire.
He will accept that. I've asked him that question. If we do this deal, he's not looking for more war. He doesn't mind, but I've specifically asked him that question.
And that he would visit Putin in Russia if an agreement was reached to end the fighting. Putin said later in the day that he has not discussed resolving the war in detail with Mr. Trump. Meantime, in New York, the U.S. voted with North Korea, Russia, Iran, and a number of other Moscow-aligned countries against a resolution condemning Russian aggression in Ukraine. The European-backed resolution, which doesn't carry any enforcement, still passed overwhelmingly in the UN General Assembly. The latest evidence of the growing rift between the Trump administration and U.S. allies over continued support for Ukraine.